Hello, everybody. I am Becky, the director of Northampton Film Festival, and all of this week, if you are watching these live, we have been talking to filmmakers that have been shortlisted for Northampton Film Festival 2023. So if you are interested in attending this year's festival, we have a massive programme of brilliant things for you. For the first time doing feature-length stuff as well, which is very exciting. And you can find the whole programme on northamptonfilmfestival.eventive.org. So today we are speaking to two feature filmmakers, but the one we are talking to at the moment is a documentary filmmaker based in Leicester. We have with us Wayne Kelly from Spoon Jar Films from the documentary No Fair, the Sian Green story. Thank you for joining us.
No, thanks for having me. It's great. Thanks. Great to be here, Becky. Cheers.
Well, it was nice actually. We met at the Leicester Real Documentary, the inaugural Real Documentary Film Festival a few weeks back, when your film was also being shown. I'm just really glad that you have put it into Northampton Film Festival. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what the film is all about?
Yeah, so basically it's a dramatic documentary, if you like. There's lots of kind of drama in it, things that will make you angry, things that will make you upset. In the screenings that we've had in the past, we've had people shouting out at the screen and other different bits and pieces. But the premise basically is that a young woman, Sian Green, in 2013, she visited New York on holiday with a friend. It was the first time that she'd been there. It was the very first day there. She was walking through Rockefeller Plaza. There was a road rage incident totally unrelated to her, and a taxi basically went up onto the sidewalk or the pavement, drove into Rockefeller Plaza, hit her, and she lost her leg, basically. She almost died on the scene. There were lots of other things. There was a TV doctor involved, and a plumber helped to save her, and lots of different things. And our film tells the story of that day, but then picks up about Sian's battle for justice and how she justice and get compensation and just put her life back together, basically. Is where we follow her. So we started filming in 2015 originally. Originally the incident took place in 2013, and then we followed Sian's life for a number of years, and that's the film that tells that story. So yeah, it's as I say, it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you angry, it'll do all those things.
Absolutely. I mean, how did it come about? How did you get involved?
So kind of a separate thing, we were doing a corporate project, actually, some branded content, and we actually used Sian as a model in one of the shoots. And we were talking to Sian's sister, and Sian sort of said, well, of course, you know what happened to my sister Sian. And me and Matt must be about the only two, that Matt's the director, we must have been the only two people in Leicester that didn't know of Sian's story, because it'd been on the news and everything a couple of years before, but it passed us by. And so she explained about it, and she said that, you know, at that point, this was in 2015, she hadn't had any justice or anything, and she was still following, trying to get justice and follow the story. And that's how we initially got interested. We were already looking, we'd made lots of short documentaries at that point, and we were looking for something to do, tell a longer story, bigger story. And so that's how we got involved. And, you know, within a few months, myself and Matt and Sian had hopped on a plane, and we were filming in New York, and entirely self-funding the project. We thought we'd get some help along the way, but we didn't. So we just kind of had to crack on and do it ourselves. And kind of that's kind of where it went, and it obviously took a number of years to come to fruition, and here we are.
Well, yes, I mean, I've been talking to quite a lot of documentary filmmakers about their films for the festival, and you know, some of them, the time that the journey takes, and you know, is such a long time, but I assume really necessary. And how do you cope with that as filmmakers when you, like you say, budgets are so tight?
Well, I think it helps if you've got at least another person, or there's a bit of a team, because for myself and Matt, it was a bit of a relay race, really. So there was always, after a couple of years, there was always one of us that wanted to give up. And it was always, you know, the other one would say, no, come on, we'll go a little bit further. We'll do a little bit more. And, you know, even relatively recently, within the last couple of years, I mean, I was at the point where I was like, well, you know, for whatever reason, we're not going to manage to finish the film, or we're not going to manage to get Sian's story out into the world. And Matt, to be fair, was really, really passionate, and he had lots and lots of perseverance, and he kept us going and kept pushing. And Sian herself is a massive inspiration, regardless of the film, just the way that Sian lives her life and the way that she's coped with what's happened to her. She's an inspirational person, and we didn't feel like we could let Sian down as much as anything else, so we had to keep going with it. So that's kind of helped us with it. And like most people that make, whether it's documentary films or they make fiction films or whatever, a lot of the time we're doing it on limited budgets, and we're having to fit it around other things, whether it's other paid day jobs or whatever. Myself and Matt, we basically, another side of the business is we do sort of branded content and corporate things, and that essentially had to pay for the production on the film and when we could pick it up and do it like that. So yeah, we just had to keep going, picking up in little bits and pieces. We did lots of it in a relatively short space of time, and then because the story went on for so much longer and we didn't do it as quickly as we probably wanted to, the film's actually much better because of it. So that's the other thing to bear in mind. Sometimes these things happen for a reason, and that patience actually pays off. So the film is definitely, if we'd have finished the film in 2016, say, for example, the story wouldn't have been finished, and it wouldn't have been anywhere near as powerful as it is now. So I think that's kind of all worked out for the best, really.
And I think you described it as a kind of dramatic documentary when you were introducing it. So yeah, it is filled with drama, and obviously you've done kind of recreation elements and stuff like that. Yeah, tell us a little bit about what maybe makes it a little bit different from other documentaries and that drama.
Yeah, so obviously one of the things that we were faced with was the fact that this happened a couple of years before we got involved. There is news footage, some newsreel footage, and we were lucky enough that there was a trainee journalist happened to be walking through Rockefeller Plaza that day with a camera, and she was there literally seconds after the crash had occurred. So there's lots of footage that we managed to secure the rights to that footage. So that is in the film, and that's very, very hard hitting, and you're literally there just a few moments after the crashes happened. But we've got all these interviews, and we've got Sian telling the story, and her best friend that was there on the day, plus the plumber that was there that helped to save her life because she almost died on the scene. There's a TV doctor. So we've got all these people that we interviewed, but we were faced with the challenge of, well, how do we actually bring this to life? And as I say, we're just two guys from Leicester, so we didn't have a huge budget or anything. So Matt, the director, came up with the idea of, well, let's see if we can get hold of a car that looks like a yellow taxi. So we bought a second-hand car from eBay that was about to run out of MOT. It had a couple of weeks left on it, so we had to film it within that 2-week spell. We got a stuntman that looked like the cyclist that was involved in the road rage incident, and we got up really, really early on a Sunday morning in Leicester. We found a backdrop that looked a little bit American, and we shot it in multiple angles, and we basically, myself, Matt, an assistant, and the stuntman, and we just got out and we shot lots of scenes to be able to recreate it. And when I tell people that, they can't believe it when they watch the film, because you'd never know. People just assume that we shot something in New York, which has been great. People are always surprised when we tell them that, when they actually see the footage.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, I'm surprised. And I mean, in terms of obviously, working with Sian while going through, really big personal journey. I mean, I assume that can be challenging as a filmmaker, and also just as a human being.
It was challenging. One of the biggest challenges were really, there was a couple of things. Initially, difficulty was actually getting Sian to basically show that's not softer side, but you do these interviews. Obviously, it was a story that she probably told other people a number of times. Plus, it was a very, very traumatic experience. And one of the ways that Sian kind of dealt with it was she'd kind of got a very set way of telling the story. It's almost disassociation. She just didn't really want to, she would tell it, she'd talk about it. She didn't really get very emotional about it. She'd tell it in a very matter-of-fact way. And she's also a very, very, very positive person. So getting her to admit when she's feeling a little bit down or she's struggling or anything else, it's really tricky. So part of that was based over the fact that we filmed Sian for a long period of time, number of years. And obviously we got comfortable with each other. We would be, we'd be filming all the time. And the other thing that we did was we bought Sian a camera of her own and encouraged her to do video diaries. And we did have to encourage her, because for ages she didn't do anything. She just would say, "Have you done a video diary, Sian?" And she, "Oh no, I keep forgetting." But eventually she started using the camera, and we got her to do regular video diaries. And on those, the video diaries, which again form part of the documentary, and they are more confessional, and she is admitting that she's struggling with things, and she's struggling with things like her job and her health, and the impact that it has on that, and the fact that she was struggling to get any kind of legal recompense or anything else. So that was kind of how we did it. And when we actually did the interviews and we went to New York and we heard the story for herself, that was seriously hard hitting. And I think some of that comes across in the film itself, because there are gasps, and there are, when people watch it, they are visibly upset by some of the things that people say. And there was lots of things that didn't end up in the film. We could almost make another film about other stories that are actually way worse than Sian's, in terms of lots of people die over there from traffic, these types of traffic incidents, and nothing happens. Children are being killed, and people run over by multiple taxis, and all these kind of things. And we couldn't really include them in the film because it was getting away from Sian's story. But we've still got some of those stories. But going and speaking to parents that have lost their children and things like that was, there were some really, really dark, heavy days when we were in New York. And there would be days when we get to the end of the day when myself and Matt were, getting emotional ourselves, and, wondering whether we'd be able to deal with it. So, but that's, I think that's the same with anything, whether you're doing even to a certain extent, if you're making a fictional short film or a feature film or whatever, when you're dealing with emotions and you're trying to recreate these things, I think that's kind of it's part of it, really, to put yourself in that position and try and draw out empathy so that you can tell the story the best way that you can.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, in terms of what you hope audiences take away from the film, or or what you discussed with Sian that you hope kind of comes out of the end of this film, what is that?
Well, I think one of the big things is there's a number of things. On a practical basis, make sure that you've got travel insurance when you go abroad and you do anything. No matter with where you go, because if Sian didn't have travel insurance, she wouldn't have been able to get care or anything in America. She'd have had to pay for everything that I'm just talking about, dealing with the loss of a limb and all the rest of it. So that would be a very practical thing to take away. And I think, Sian is just massively, massively inspirational, and it does make you put your own problems and things into perspective. Sian even talks about it in one part of the film, where somebody, when she's got a job and somebody calls her up to complain about a cushion or something like that, and Sian very humorously sort of puts them down and says, really, you've got a big problem about a cushion. I look at all the things that I'm having to deal with. But it's right, and it is inspirational from that point of view. It is really, really uplifting, without giving away too much about where the story goes and everything. As hard hitting and powerful as a lot of this stuff is, it is very uplifting by the time you get to it, and you will be, not cheering, but you will be looking at things. I think people have said that it makes them look at their own lives a little bit differently, and puts things into perspective for them. And in terms of the wider aspects, the legal aspects and things of what's going on in New York and in America in particular, is how they view these kinds of traffic. They will just look at these things as accidents, and that's it. Nobody gets, over here we've got driving without due care and attention and things. That doesn't exist in America. And so the car is king. So if somebody gets hit by a car in these situations, it's always, the onus is always on the pedestrian, and nothing really happens. And it's just one of those things. It's an oopsie, as someone describes it in the film. So again, in terms of as and when the film gets shown in America, we hope that people will watch it and maybe, again, just look at things a little bit differently, and maybe ask some questions as regards why it's like this, because I think everybody's just accepts it there because that's what it's like. I mean, that's why jaywalking is a crime over there. It's the onus is put on the pedestrian, not the driver. So yeah, there's some of the wider things as well, from a practical point of view.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it's a great documentary, and as you say, Sian is very inspirational. We're showing a lot of films that we think hopefully will inspire people across the film festival, and yeah, I definitely think this is one of them. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me today and telling us about it.
No problem. Thanks for asking me, and hope everybody enjoys the film. I'd love to hear what you think about it. You can find out more about us on spoonjarfilms.co.uk as well. So please get in touch. It'd be great to hear from people.
Absolutely. And yes, if you are interested in watching the film, it is on at Northampton Film House as part of the film festival on Saturday, 27th of May at 2 o'clock. If you aren't watching this live and you've missed it, then please do keep an eye on our website, social media, and all that kind of stuff, because when it gets more screenings around, obviously we'll be championing it. So we are northamptonfilmfestival.co.uk if you want to look up the programme or just look up future stuff. Thank you very much for joining me.